Welcome to So It's Not Just Me, the podcast where we explore how various aspects of life impact our mental health and share strategies to manage stress and improve well-being. I'm your host, Joanna, and today we're discussing a topic that affects millions of people around the world, social media. With that, we're going to be joined by Jay, who's going to discuss his personal experiences with the impacts of social media on his mental health and techniques that he's developed to cope with these challenges. Welcome, Jay.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to get straight into it. Can you express and explain some of your experiences that you've had with social media and how they've affected your mental health?
Yeah, I think it's a really important tool to have, social media, to try and not feel too disconnected from people. I think that it's a double edged sword because it can make you feel even more disconnected if you see people doing stuff and you're not invited to it, or you can feel a little bit isolated if people aren't including you in things or you aren't getting responses to messages and that kind of thing. But I think it is really important to have it. I wouldn't be able to cope without it now. I've tried to not have it a couple of times and it's sort of difficult. I do feel a lot more removed from everything when I don't have access to it. And as well as part of some of the stuff that I do with podcasts, etc., it's sort of a necessity to have it these days to push those kind of things and to get sort of attention for the things you're working on. So I do like social media, but I think it is also quite a dangerous thing
Yeah, I
in
found.
certain aspects.
Go ahead.
I just think it can be, obviously there's the aspect of online bullying and that kind of thing. Like when we went to school, this didn't exist. So if you were having a tough time with someone, it was only 5, 6, 7 hours a day, whatever you were at school, and then you could relax at home. Now it's 24/7. People have access to your life. There's all that
Yes.
kind of thing, and I think that goes on into adulthood as well. A lot of people feel bullied or sort of picked on when they express their views on things like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And I think certain platforms are better than others. There's certain ones that I don't use at all anymore, such as Twitter or X, because it's just such a toxic environment. I
Yeah.
don't want to go near it. I think Instagram and Facebook are a little bit better if you stay in the right places in them. But yeah, it's
Don't do you find as well? I don't know whether it's just me, but they all kind of take the turns into being salesy or different to what they was originally planned for. So they start as being, here's your way to hook up with friends and keep on top of everything and reach out with people who aren't close by. And then next minute, all you're getting on Instagram is a sales post or somebody trying to flog a dead horse somewhere else.
yeah, I think because of the reason I use Instagram, because I don't have a personal account, I have an account for our podcast, and that's it. I
Yeah.
only see it as an advertising tool, and I only tend to see adverts or posts from other businesses or influencers. I hate that term, but those kinds of people because they're who I follow because they follow us. And so for me, that is a very advertiser heavy platform. I can imagine it's different if you're literally just putting your holiday pictures and stuff like that on it because it all
Yes.
comes down to who you follow. But I do think Instagram's quite aggressive with advertising as well because you'll be scrolling down what you think is your friend's personal page, and then all of a sudden an advert will come up for something. And there's been multiple times when I've gone, why are they posting about an air up bottle? And then I realise it's actually a sponsored ad, which on Facebook you don't get. Do you? If you're on someone's page, it is just their posts. So
Yeah.
that took a bit of getting used to when I first started using it because I was getting really confused like a lot of the time. And then realised, yeah, it's sponsored or it's a suggested post.
I feel like that's quite new. Like I've only really noticed that the last few weeks or months or so, the sponsored post on Instagram. I think Facebook is very it's not what I originally signed up for. But bearing in mind we've had social media what, 10, 15 years plus?
Yeah, 2007, 2008, I think I joined Facebook. And before that, I was on MySpace when I was at university. So
Yes.
yeah, even further back than that. But that was MySpace was pretty pure, wasn't it? There wasn't really an
Yes.
advertising element to that.
I
And
think
then
that's
it
before
turned
they
into
realised that you could do the advertising. It was
Yeah,
just
just a
meet and
place to talk
greets.
to friends. Yeah, and pick your top 8 friends, which I always thought was a bad idea because
Yeah.
that just caused more arguments than anything else. At least on Facebook, there's not so much favoritism, I suppose.
Um, I maybe. It's I remember the top 8 friends, and the second you get to school and then you've got to explain to somebody, "Oh, I'm really sorry I took you out because,"
Yeah, it
or
was it was brutal.
yeah, or when you've got 9 friends, like, which one do you leave behind?
Yeah,
Oh, I forgot all about that until you said, and then when you could click on and just have, like, a piece of music that came on.
yeah, it was like a free for all, wasn't it? Like you could have little virtual pets on your page and all sorts that I'm pretty sure you could, if you would know what you're doing, could have put like malicious web code on it, but because it was just so free and easy. But like Facebook have locked that kind. Facebook was a bit like that when it first started. You had like graffiti walls and stuff, and
Oh,
then
did
they
you?
realized, yeah, there used to be a bit where friends could like draw. I think it was like a plug-in, but
Oh,
you used to be
okay.
able to add plugins and stuff to your profiles back in the early days, and people could like leave you graffitis on your wall and stuff like that. But it's much more regimented now. I think partly because they couldn't keep up with it all, and
Yeah.
probably now that's probably something they'd want to charge you for if you could still do it. So they've probably just
Yeah.
got rid of it because no one wanted to pay for it.
I do find social media is great, now that I don't live in the UK, and catching up with friends and family, but there's so many other ways of doing that, just like WhatsApp messaging rather than, you
Yeah,
know, scrolling through somebody's page.
there's definitely downfalls to it. I mean, the amount of time I've spent just doom scrolling through Facebook when I should be doing something more important, and it is. I don't even know what it is. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'll sit there scrolling through it, or I'll get stuck on a loop of short videos and end up watching like 30, 40 videos when I've
I
got
th
other more important things to do.
Oh, yeah, every single night. I can't go to bed without scrolling through TikTok. I've TikTok during COVID was great just to have a bit of fun and, silly little videos, but now I've never really recorded a TikTok video, but I can't not watch it, and I don't know why, and I can't go to sleep until I've scrolled through it, and it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, and it's just somebody's cat or something, or a kid falling over or something stupid.
I think the move to working from home as well made it more prominent because when we were in work, in an office, you weren't, well, you were allowed your phones with you, but if you were sat there scrolling on a video for 20 minutes, somebody was going to say something. Whereas
Yeah.
if you sat at home and you start doing it, there's no one there to police it. And I have to purposefully make sure my phone's not near me when I'm working at home because I know I'll get drawn into doing it. So I'll put it out of reach or I'll stick a YouTube video on it so I'm not physically picking it up, and
Yes.
that sort of counteracts it. But it is so difficult sometimes to not get distracted by all the different elements of social media. I don't know how people cope that are on every platform because I'm only on like two, three, and that's enough for me. And then you get people that are on like what is the six, seven, eight now.
Do you know what? I don't think I could name them all. I really don't. I
There's a few that I
probably
don't
what?
like. Threads. I've never been on Threads. I don't understand the point of that one, so I've not gone near that.
No, and
I,
I think somebody said if you decide to cancel Threads, then your Instagram goes down, and
uh,
it just sounds too
I've
complicated for me.
I've still got a Twitter which I exclusively use to complain to people. That is the only reason I still got it because it's easy to sort of get in touch with people on there and put it out there. So that is purely the only reason I keep a Twitter account. If my personal Twitter account is literally me following like BT, KFC, PlusNet, all the just people I've complained to at some point, and that's it.
I don't even know. I know I have a Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, but I don't know how to use it. I feel really old, but I just don't know how to use it anymore. Um, so with the social media, do you think that has like contributed to any sort of like anxiety or depression or stress or anything like that when you've been doom scrolling or just seeing what other people are posting?
Yeah, I think it has. Like when, not so much when COVID was a thing because I had my own opinions on COVID, and there was a lot of people going on about how you shouldn't. be wearing a mask and bowing down to the government and all this business. And I read it with intrigue, but I didn't really need it to shape my own opinions.
Yeah.
But when the whole war in Russia thing in Ukraine kicked off, I was already in a bit of a bad place mentally anyway. And to see posts keep popping up on that all the time when I was trying to actively avoid it, and then seeing people in the comments basically saying this will be the end of the world and we're going to get blown up and all that kind of thing, that was really damaging because it was impossible to avoid if you wanted to be on social media, and it wasn't what I was on there for.
Yes.
And I think that was quite damaging. The other side of things that I think can be quite damaging for social media is if anything happens to your account. So, um, as you know, I had a website for quite a number of years, which ended up getting hacked. As part of that getting hacked, they also managed to hack into my Facebook account, um, and took it over for about 12 hours. It wasn't a long
Wow.
time, but it was stressful because you've got so much of your life sort of tied up in that account that you don't realize.
Yeah.
Family photos, there's loads of pictures on my Facebook that I don't have anywhere else.
Yes.
So if I couldn't get back into it, I sort of lost all those people that I exclusively talked to on there. That if I lost my account, I'd lose all the conversations I'd had with them. So to lose that and feel so helpless because there's no one there to really help you, because there's no human at the other end to talk to,
Yeah.
it's all an automated process. And luckily, I was able to upload a picture of my driving license and get my account back, and then essentially lock it down with two-factor authentication and all that kind of thing that I should have done before it happened. So it's a bit more secure now, probably not 100%, but a lot more than it was. But that 12-hour period was incredibly stressful. And
Yes.
then I'd say about 8 months later, I was on holiday at the coast, and we'd gone away for my birthday. And my other half had gone to bed, and I was staying up to watch TV. And I think it was about 3 in the morning. And I got a Facebook notification saying, "We've had to remove your advert because it breaches our standards." And I was like, "I've not run an advert on there for over 10 years. I used to run them for my website when I first started, but nothing been running recently." And I clicked it, and it was a picture of Elon Musk and a Bitcoin logo. And I was like, "Yeah, I've not been running this advert."
Yeah.
And I went into my advertising account, and when somebody takes over your profile and you claim it back, it brings up a screen and says, "In the last X amount of hours, these things happen. Tell us which ones are actually you and which ones weren't you, and we'll reverse the ones that weren't you." So on mine, I think they'd added 3 people from Nigeria, and that was it. And I was like, I haven't done this. So it reversed it. And I thought, jobs are good and no, nothing to worry about. What they'd actually done is added those people and then added them to my advertiser account, which it
Right.
didn't tell me anything about. They'd set up a load of ads and they'd been running them for 6 months, and they'd racked up like 15 grand's worth of like debt. And I
Wow.
just absolutely panicked and went, "I'm liable for like 15 grand. What am I going to do?" Really, really started panicking. Went and woke my other half up. We're looking through it. And when we looked into it deeper, they'd used somebody else's credit card to pay for it. So they'd used my account and someone else's credit card to run all these ads. So I ended up trying to get in touch with Facebook. It took about 6 hours to actually speak to a human. And they just went, "Oh yeah, we can see it's fraudulent. We're going to refund all the credit card transactions and take like the marker off your account." And then it all just went back to normal. But like for that 12 hours, I genuinely thought I owed someone 15 grand and I was going to get in a load of trouble for it.
That's really scary.
So that was really damaged. Even though it all resolved itself fairly well, it leaves a mark, and it sort of makes you think, well, what could have happened or what could happen in the future?
Yeah.
And that really hit me quite a lot when that happened, and that probably contributed to the issues I had with mental health a little bit later. Probably a year later. I think that was probably like one of the trigger points for it.
That's wow. I didn't know that. I don't think I've spoke to you about that before.
But yeah, it's
That's
scary, and it's
crazy.
how easy it is for them to do it, and how hard it is for you to notice. Like
Yeah,
if they hadn't have run an inappropriate in inverted commas advert, it could still be going on now, and I would not have the foggiest idea it's happening.
that's
So
crazy.
it is. I think they need a little bit more safeguarding, like that screen that comes up and says, "This is what's happened." since your account got took over should incorporate more than just adding friends and making posts. If
Yes.
it had said you've set up 10 adverts and you've added these people as, because they, even though I removed those people as friends, they were still admins on my advertiser account, so they just kept running more and more ads, and I never noticed. And yeah, that was a bit scary. And it just, you're constantly thinking, can they get back in, or can they, have they put some sort of backdoor in? Have they changed a bit of information somewhere that they can use to get back in, an email address or a phone number? Because that's how they did it. They logged in, changed my email address, and changed my mobile number, and then locked me out essentially.
It's it really does just mess with your mind. Because then just one of them going down, you're then thinking they have access to your bank accounts, or they know where you live, and they know every single detail about you.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that you don't. I know it sounds harsh, but you don't mean anything to them.
Yes.
That was the bit I couldn't get my head around when my website got hacked and when all this happened. I took it very personally, and I spoke to somebody who I was working with who was a security expert, and he was like, "Don't take it personally." He's like, "They will run some sort of like a bot that will go out onto the internet and it will try. I think my password was used on a different website. I'd set a website up for someone and I'd asked them to remove my details and they hadn't. So my like normal username and passwords in their site and they'd not kept it secure, so it got breached. My
Right.
information was on there and it got taken. And he basically said they'll have these robots that go out and just hit every WordPress site they can find with a massive list of usernames and password combinations. And if it gets in, it will send an email back to them saying, "We've got in at this place." And then they'll check it out. He's like, it's not like they've just gone, "Oh, this website looks like I want to hack it," and targeted you. And that was the bit that I really struggled to get my head around. But once I did, it softened the blow a bit, because it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, they've not just picked me. It's not who I am. They've not come after me personally. They've just found a way in, and it just so happens that it was mine. And once that clicked into place, I did feel a little bit better about it because I didn't feel personally targeted.
Right. Do you find when you're on social media a lot that it affects you mentally compared to the days when you're not on it, or is it like the opposite effect? You feel like you have to go on it.
Yeah, I think it's probably the, unless I'm like away on holiday and I'm purposefully avoiding it, I think it's the other way around. Like if I have a really busy day and I don't get to check up on it very much, I feel like I might have missed out on something. And I think in this day and age, when you have all these little community groups, so we've got like a local community group, and the amount of posts that get put on there that end up getting deleted because somebody said something they shouldn't,
Yeah.
they can come and go within a couple of hours, and I always feel like I'm going to miss something if I don't. It's probably like a
Yeah.
bit of nosiness, but yeah. So I do like to sort of keep up to date on it, but then it's so hard to swing the other way and just spend half your life on there. And I think getting that balance is a really important thing to keeping your mental health well when it comes to social media. Finding a balance of, I can check in and I can see what my friends are doing and I can feel connected, but not I'm on it 24/7 and it's become my whole life. And if I don't get it, I can't live without it.
I think sometimes it's more the messenger side of things for me. And I hate, so I use Facebook a lot on my desktop rather than on my phone because I just don't like holding my phone anymore. I don't know whether it's getting older. I don't want things in my hand. I just want to have everything in front of me. So when I'm online and I know, for example, say I've messaged you and you've not got back to me, but I can see that you're online. Oh, that bar just drives me insane. I think that's what affects my mental health more than scrolling through as such. I think you can see so much that you don't need to see, and a lot of the time it's not even real.
Yeah, I think it's one of the worst feelings ever is sending somebody a message, then reading it and just not replying.
Mhm.
And I do it a lot myself, and it's usually if I'm busy and I can't, I'll think, oh, I'll reply to that later. But to the other person, it just looks like I've completely ignored them. So
Yes.
again, it's one of those things that I have to get in my head that like that person hasn't replied. My immediate go to is I've upset them and I've done something to upset them.
Yep.
Whereas it probably isn't. It's probably just I've messaged them while they're working and they'll reply to me at some point later. And yeah, I have to sort of stop myself from spamming more messages and being like, "Are you all right? Is there something wrong?" I have to control that a bit and just go, "No, they'll reply when they get round to replying, and that's fine." Because I know how bad I am at it as well. If I reply to every message straight away as soon as I got it, then I'd sort of have grounds to be annoyed when somebody else didn't do it. But I don't do that either, so
But
I
you
can
also haven't got
completely
time
accept
to
it.
just text somebody back constantly.
No, exactly, and I think I expect it, even though I don't do it. And like you say, I just panic. It's not even that I'm like annoyed. It's that I think, oh God, what have I done? What have I done
Yes.
to not want this person to respond? And yeah, I think that's quite a damaging one, especially if it's somebody that you care quite a lot about, and
Hmm.
you want them to reply, and you sort of like one of your best friends or something like that, and you think, why are they not replying? Like,
Yes.
what's happened to stop this going on? And yeah, it can be a bit upsetting at times, but you've just got to remember that people have lives outside of Messenger, I suppose, and they've probably got something just going on at the time.
I know that I've done it to you. I know I have. Um, I can probably say I've done it this week, most likely, and just spammed you and said, "Hey, why are you ignoring me?" And I know that you're busy. I know we're on different time zones and things, but you do take it
Yeah,
personally more than you should.
for me, a lot of the time, it's if I've like you say you use it on your laptop more than you do your phone.
Hmm.
If I've left my laptop switched on with Facebook open on it, my phone doesn't alert me if I've got a message. It just routes
Right.
it straight to my laptop. So a lot of the time, if I'm not replying, it's because I've not seen any notification. Then I'll open my messages and I've got like 10 unread, and suddenly I realise that it's my laptop must be turned on, which
Yeah.
most of the time reminds me to go and close it because I've left it sort of using a load of power in another room. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's that's the main reason I don't reply if I don't get the notifications, or if I'm using my phone for like a YouTube video but I'm not actively watching it, I'm just listening to it.
Yeah.
They'll pop up at the top and then immediately disappear because they think I've seen it.
Yeah.
So that is my main issue. I generally am quite good at replying, but like you say, we cross time zones, and I'm sometimes asleep or I'll be like just waking up
Yeah.
or something, and I'll completely miss it. So yeah, I don't mind. You can send me as many messages as you want. I'll get back to you
I'm an
when I get a
exception.
chance.
So, I didn't get you on my podcast just to call you out and tell you off, just FYI, just so you're aware. Um, Let me see. I do think that social media has been great for me now that I have moved away with being in contact with people in other time zones, and even in the US, my friends are all across the US, so we have 4 different time zones, I think, here, maybe 5, I can't remember. Um, so things like that is great, but I think all in all, it's yeah. Have you found anything, algorithm-wise that it brings up a lot of certain things that then affect how you feel?
Not so much the affect how I feel. It's just some of them are really annoying. Like we did. I'm convinced, and I'm sure most people are, that your phone is listening to you even when you're not using it.
Oh, yeah.
And because we do a video game podcast, me and Eddie, it's like a running joke now. We were talking about they did a Bluey game. So obviously we're not the target market for it, but it came out
Really?
and it was horrific. It was like full of bugs. Like it was really bad when they launched it. So we discussed it on an episode and just so happened to mention this game's come out and it is full of bugs. It's like scaring kids because of some of the bugs that it does. Um, and we joked and said, "Oh, we should play it." And then about 2 hours later, I started seeing Bluey groups popping up on Facebook in my suggested, and they're still there now. And we did do an episode on it, so that's probably on us because I have also posted the word Bluey quite a bit on Facebook as
Right.
well. So it's probably on me now. But yeah, that was weird that they started, and they, like I say, they still do. And I'm not the target market for it all. I've
No.
never watched an episode. I've played the game because we played it through, and it was terrible as we expected. But yeah, it's strange stuff like that where you look at one reel maybe that you don't even have any interest in, but you don't scroll off it in a timely manner, and then all of a sudden reels that are similar to that just constantly start coming up. And I know why it does it, and it is useful at certain times. Like on YouTube's much more into the algorithm, I think, than anyone else,
Right.
and that's quite useful because I'll listen to. I've got really into listening to these like I don't even know how you describe them. It's basically people reading out scary stories that allegedly happened. And
Okay.
because I've listened to one person reading two or three of them out, there's loads of people that do them on YouTube, and now it's started putting other ones in, and some of them are terrible because they're like AI voices and they don't read anything normally, and you just can't
I
tell what they're
watched the
saying.
same ones. Yeah.
But some of them, like I think there's one called Mr. Nightmare and one called Ripshy, they're really good. So it keeps. I don't follow either of them, but it just constantly keeps putting new ones on when I watch one,
Yes.
and that I quite like because it means I don't have to pick my phone up and find something else. It just keeps going. Whereas on Facebook, when it's recommending, and Instagram too, to an extent, like the other day, I saw an advert on there for a phone case that turns into like a little Game Boy, so you
Oh,
can
nice.
unclip it and clip it onto the front. Can't find it. I told it my mate about it, and he wanted to buy one. Can't find it anywhere. But now I'm seeing loads of videos for phone cases, like the sponsored phone cases, because I've tried to find that one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I get why they do it. It's clever. It works for a lot of things. It doesn't really affect our mental health, but it's just annoying when you get locked into an algorithm that you're not interested in because it thinks you've got an interest in it, and then you don't see
Yes.
anything else for ages. So that's irritating. But yeah, I don't think it affects me mentally. I tend to just scroll by them until it decides to change it to something else.
Mine was so now that I'm old, we're obsessed with watching the birds. I don't know if I've told you this already. So I bought a bird feeder for on the window because I get cardinals and blue jays. And I've never seen them before. We don't get them in England. I'm sure we don't get them in England, but I've never seen them before. So I was saying to Kyle that I wanted to get a bird cam so I can watch the birds because I want to see what's eating all the food. It turns out it's squirrels, but I wanted to see where it was. And now every time I open my phone, bird feeder or cameras. That's all I get, bird feeders and cameras. And it's like, all right, next thing is going to be train spotting. I'm sure it's like it's getting to that level. I'm getting that
you
age.
you can get like a
But
bird box with a camera built in the back of it, can't you? Because
yeah, but
my
it's like $350, I think,
yeah,
the one that I saw.
my mum and dad, we got them a bird box that looks like an old school post box, you know, the old red,
Oh,
like with the
yes.
ER on the front. We got on one of them and they put it up and it got some little blue tits going in it, and my mum
Oh,
was loving
nice.
it. And then they found out that it had got, they kept pulling stuff out of it and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And it turns out it had like a plastic liner in it that you were meant to remove and they'd not. So
Right.
the blue tits were trying to pull that out before they built a nest in there. So my dad took it out, and now they won't go anywhere near it. It's like because he's been in there, they're just out of the game. So I was telling my mum and dad about the one with the camera in, and my mum was like, "Oh, I'd absolutely love that." And then yeah, I told them it was like 400 quid or something, and they quickly decided they didn't need that anymore. So
I had a mobile phone, an old mobile phone set up on a tripod that we managed to hook up to constant video record. It burnt out the mobile phone, but it worked for like 2 days. It was great. And it was like the best thing I could have ever done. But now my social media knows that all I want to do is join bird watching
watch
groups.
birds.
Apparently, yeah. What other bird watching groups can you find? Did you ever find, even when you was maybe younger, that you was comparing yourself to other things on social media?
No, not really. I don't think that's ever something I've been that bothered about. Like it, there's little bits, isn't there, when you see someone at a nice restaurant or you see someone at a concert that you wanted to go to and you couldn't get tickets, and there's a little bit of. I think it's always 50-50. You're sort of happy for them, but you're also a bit jealous at the same time.
Yeah.
And I get that. I get that totally. And I try and be a bit cautious as to what I put on there now because I don't want it to just be constantly be like, oh, I'm here doing this or I'm there doing that. Do you know what I mean? Because if that's all that's on there, I think it's probably just going to annoy people more than it's going to make people interested in what I'm doing.
Oh,
So
I'm
I
sure
tend
everyone
not to
hates
do
mine. I'm
that.
Disney, beach, theme park. What other baby
mine is
stuff am I doing this week?
mine is mainly pictures of steaks at the minute because we've been going and eating a lot of nice steaks.
I have
Um,
noticed.
but I do have like 3 or 4 vegan friends on Facebook, and I'm always a bit conscious that I'm going to upset them, especially as one of them. I say friends. I don't know how we met, but we've been friends on there for like 10 years now, and she's like a very sort of militant vegan, if I can use that term without upsetting people. So if somebody posts a picture of like meat, she's on it and she's like slating them, and she's
Oh,
constantly posting like videos of like animal abuse and like how can you support this and all this. And I don't know why I'm not getting it, whether I'm just not coming up in her algorithm and she's not seeing it, but I'm fully expecting at some point to get abused for eating these steaks. And yeah, that makes me think twice sometimes about posting, but then I'm just like, no, this is too good not to share. Look at how nice it
yes.
looks. So
I guarantee at the end of this podcast, it will have flagged up on her phone or your phone, and one of you
yeah,
you'll be showing.
probably I might have to unfriend her before. I mean, we've literally not talked for about 10 years, but I think that's another thing with Facebook and social media. There's a good portion of the like 400 people I'm friends with that I have no interest in anymore, other than
Yep.
to look at what they're doing and sort of think, huh, that's not very good, which is a horrible way to be. But like, I do keep some people on my Facebook just to see what they're doing and sort of like think, oh, do you know what I mean? It sounds mean, but like people like the one I've just mentioned, who I don't really know at all. I keep her on there because some of the posts just it kicks off massive arguments, and I'm like, oh, it's something to read for the next 10, 15 minutes.
You
So I
don't need
keep her
to.
on there. Yeah, you don't need TV when she's posting about this, and then loads
Yes.
of people are like fighting with her. So I just keep people on for that kind of thing mainly. Um, but yeah, I think that's a nasty element of social media as well. Is that people will keep people on their friends list that they had no interest in being friends with anymore, just to
Yes.
keep tabs on what they're doing.
I feel guilty deleting people. And like even people I know I'm never ever going to physically see again. And they're probably never going to contact me, but I feel really, really guilty if I go to delete them.
That is
So,
quite painful as well when you see like add this person as a friend and you're like, well, I was friends with them, so that
yes.
obviously means they've got rid of me, and that is a bit painful. But if it's somebody you've not spoken to for so long, I mean, like even people we went to school with, I'm not friends with them on there anymore. When I used to be, and I didn't unfriend them, so I assume they either unfriended me or got a new profile.
Yeah.
And I look at it and go, oh, that's sad. But then I think, well, I've not spoken to him for 15 years, so what difference does it make?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that I've not spoke to since we were at school, and what's that,
Hmm.
20 years ago?
Yeah, there's people on mine that I didn't like at school, but I've got them on
Yes.
there because everyone just went through a phase of just adding anyone you knew, didn't
Add
you? And then,
everyone.
yeah, there's people on there that I genuinely didn't like and I know didn't like me, but we're still friends on there, and we can see what each other's up to, and like
Yeah.
maybe once every 10 years we'll say hello, how are you getting on, and then that's it again. But yeah, other than that, no, it's a weird thing to do that because you wouldn't do it in any other aspect of life, would you? You wouldn't like keep
No.
people in your friend circle for 10 years without really talking to them and consider them a friend still.
Like a lot of people, if you consider who your true friends are, you have maybe like a handful, 5, 10. Like your
Yeah,
true, true core friends. And maybe back in the day, it was like a little bit of a competition to see who has the most friends. That was a big thing. Who's got the most friends? Whereas, if your Facebook just had 10, 20 people on or whatever, just your core friends and your family, that's what it's designed for.
yeah. I think there is an element of like people bragging off on there as well, which I think
Yes.
I'm probably guilty of as well. Like when you go on holiday, you put your holiday pictures on and stuff, don't you? And like, yeah, I'm not at work this week. I'm in Ibiza or whatever. And who are you doing that for? Because it's not really for you. So it is obviously just to show off to other people, but it's just the norm, isn't it? Now it's what
Yeah.
everyone does, and if people genuinely are friends with you, they'll be happy for you because you're enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
And if they're not, they won't comment. They'll just probably mutter something to themselves under their breath. And people like that
Just
don't matter
scroll
to you
by.
anyway now. Yeah.
No.
So
So Kyle doesn't have any social media at all. Like he has, oh sorry, he has Twitter, but he doesn't use it. He never ever uses it. I think the only reason he uses it, we can see the shuttle launches from Kennedy Space Center
Oh yeah,
from our apartment. So he has it for that. I think that's the only really thing. Or if there's a new show coming out, he gets a notification. He does not use social media. But in the same sense, he misses out on so much family stuff
yeah,
because it's very
yeah.
much I put it on social media, did you not see? So he misses
I
out on
think
a lot of stuff.
he probably also misses. I think if you've not got social media, you miss out on ventures that your friends might be doing. So, like when
Yeah.
I started the podcast, for example, the first episode got like stupid amounts of listens because all my friends seemed to listen to it for good
Yeah.
or for bad. I don't know if they were listening to it to see how bad it was or how good it was or whatever, but it did really well. Whereas if I got friends that weren't on Facebook, they have no idea I'm doing that, and I'm not going to email them or send them a message and go, "I've started a podcast." But if you're following each other on Facebook, you get to see that, and I think there's a lot of
Yes.
people now starting up little businesses for themselves and all that aspect of it that if you're not following them on social media, you're not going to know they're doing that, and you might want to support them, but they're
Yeah.
not going to come directly to you and tell you. So it's a useful tool to find out if your friends need support in anything. I suppose is the best
Yeah.
way to
I
put it.
really like that. Really, really like that. And I know that I'm not gonna be emailing people say, "Hey, listen to my podcast," because I'm quite nervous about this podcast going out. I'm not gonna lie. To me, I think it's really useful. A lot of the topics we've been talking about, but in the back of my head, I'm still thinking everyone's gonna hate it. No one's gonna be interested. But you don't know unless you get it out there. And how do you get it out there? Social media.
I
So
think that's a perfectly normal feeling. I think anyone, unless you are born supremely confident, I think everyone doubts themselves and doubts everything they do.
yes,
And again, social media is a great way to get that sort of reassurance that what you're doing is useful or it is good or like we don't get loads of social interaction on the podcasts, but we get enough that I know that it's worth carrying on doing. So
yeah,
we'll get somebody messaging saying, "Oh, I really enjoyed this episode," or "When's the next episode coming out?" or "Oh, looking forward to listening to this one tomorrow when I'm not working," and you get all that kind of thing. And we've just been to the biggest board game convention thing of the year in Birmingham, and we had people beforehand saying, "When's the preview episode coming out? I want to listen to it on my way down." Um, Somebody asked today, like as a generalization, when are people doing the UKG podcast because we want to listen to them? And we could go on and say, "Oh, ours is coming soon," and then they're like, "Yeah, that's great. We'll look out for it." So you get that level of reassurance from people on social media. Flip side, you can also get a lot of negativity if you put it in the right place
yeah,
or the wrong place rather. I've stopped doing stuff that I enjoy sometimes because of that. So when my wrestling website got hacked and I took the decision to shut it down eventually because it wasn't really making me any money anymore, I started writing for another wrestling website that was quite a lot bigger, had a lot more following. So it had a bigger following, but it also had a bigger following of not nice people. I would
right,
say it's quite a toxic community, the wrestling community in general. If somebody can find something to have a go at you for, they will do it. It's just the nature of that community. And I wrote 3 or 4 articles for this website, which could have been quite lucrative. I could have earned quite a lot of money if I'd have carried on doing it. But of the first two I posted, I just got really negative. There was a lot of positive comments, but I ignored those and just focused on like the two negative ones, where it's like somebody's like, "Oh, they've used the wrong punctuation in the first sentence. I'm not reading the rest of it," and it's like that doesn't invalidate the whole piece just because I've not put an apostrophe somewhere, or do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And part of it wasn't on me because it should have been proofread. I was just the writer. I wasn't the editor. So
yeah,
but it all comes back on you because your name is attached to it. And I did 4 articles, 5 articles for them, and every single one there was one or two. I don't want to swear on your podcast, but you know what I mean. That showed up in the comments, and I was like, I don't need this. I was terrified of checking the comments in case somebody had said something really negative about me.
yeah,
And for every negative comment, there was 10, 15 positive ones agreeing with what I'd said or asking questions, debating that I could reply to. But the one negative one always stands out far more.
I think
And
that's the same on everything though. What if you put a picture on social media or whatever, that negative, you're waiting for that negative comment. And that's
yeah,
what really gets you, I think.
and this is what stopped me doing more in terms of like YouTube and stuff, because I know there are literally people that sit on YouTube waiting to just insult people
Yes.
because it makes them feel better. And I think I'm too thin skinned to get past that. I know some people would just shrug it off or not read the comments or whatever, or they'll have people to read the comments. Like literally, some people employ someone to read and respond to comments because they don't
Yeah.
want to deal with it themselves. And I couldn't do that. I'm not thick skinned enough to just go, oh, ignore that one and see all the good ones. I will only hyper focus on that. And then you reply to it and it just makes it worse because then they reply to it. So you're better off ignoring it.
Yeah.
But I personally can't. And I think that is when you look at people who've made it on YouTube or in podcasting or social media, etc., and some of them you think, oh, what, they're not. How have they made it this far? Do you know what I mean? You don't appreciate what they do, or you don't like them for some reason. Just to have the skin thick enough to do what they've done and go in front of that many people and accept these negative comments and just ignore them, I think is commendable. And I
Yes.
will never like the worst YouTubers in the world. I will still never sort of talk badly of because I couldn't do what they do. Even like you, I know a lot of people don't like Jake Paul, don't like Logan Paul, that kind of thing. To do what they've done and to take the amount of stick that they've took and still want to carry on doing it, I have nothing but respect for people that can do that. So
Yeah.
I think that is, for me, that's the biggest impact on my mental health is going on something and getting negative comments. And I don't do it specifically because I don't want that to happen. Even if it wouldn't happen, I worry it would. So if I put a YouTube video on, comments are turned off, and I lose a lot of interaction that way. But I just don't want to risk it. Do you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that for me is my biggest blocker to progressing in that sort of area. And not that I really want to. It'd be nice if the podcast and stuff did well, but I don't. I sort of almost don't want them to do too well in case it brings that negativity with it.
I really, really like your podcast. I'm not just saying it because you sat here. You know that I've listened to almost every episode. Not all of them, because there's some that just don't interest me. I'm not going to lie. But I really, really enjoy your podcast. And um, I think it's a great outlet and it's different. I know I'm probably not in the right circles to hear that kind of stuff. You've probably heard a lot of similar or on the same kind of track, but I think yours is really unique for mine, if that makes it for my listening, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we try to make it as unique as we can, but I think there probably are ones out there that are very similar. But yeah, we tried to put a bit of a spin on it by doing it with the bucket list thing and making it about somebody else's list and correcting what we think they've got wrong. So we've got that little spin to it. But yeah, at the end of the day, we did it so we had time to speak to each other each week. Me and Eddie went to college in 2004 together, I think it was, and we kept in touch ever since. But we're not properly talking. It'd be here and there, sporadic. Whereas now we have this hour a week blocked out where we're going to chat with each other, and it's just nice to have that, especially for our own mental well-being. I know certainly for mine, it helps to have that hour a week that I know I'm going to chat with an old
Yes.
friend, and we're gonna have something to talk about because we've got a topic, and it never seems to get old. Like we probably talk for an hour recording, and then we'll talk for an hour afterwards just about what's going on in our lives. So it's just nice, and it does combat that feeling of loneliness because sometimes, especially working from home, other than my partner, I don't see anyone for a week at a
Yeah.
time. So having that outlets for someone to chat to, and we said even if no one ever listened to it, we'd keep doing it because it's just nice to have that structured, diaried in conversation time each week.
Yeah, and I guess with your podcast being about, all right, it's about gaming, but it's about a different game that could be a complete different genre and complete different platform every week. It gives you something to talk about, like you say. There's always something different to talk about. You're not just saying, "Yeah, I saw my friend. I went to the store. I had dinner."
Yeah,
There's more
exactly.
to it.
And we've got a lot of memories of the games together. So some of them we did actually play together when they came out. There's certain games like Resident Evil 4 and that kind of thing. We will have sat down when that came out and played it together, so we can reminisce about those times. But then
Yeah,
there's other games where we've completely experienced them separately, but we will probably have the same thoughts. So it's running those by each other and seeing how we agree or disagree. And there are certain games we disagreed on. Shadow of the Colossus, Eddie absolutely loves. I can't stand it. I think it's a really boring game. So that was an interesting episode to do because we were opposed on that one. Shenmue was another one where I'd never played it, but I'd always been told it was really good. Eddie had played it and told me it was garbage, and I wouldn't believe him. And then I sat down and played it, and it is possibly the worst game I've ever played. And I hated every second of it. And I spent like 40 quid to be able to play it as well because it's a really old, expensive game now. So
right,
yeah,
right.
there's been fun bits to it like that where we can. I mean, I think everyone enjoys listening to someone moan more than they enjoy them,
Oh, yeah.
enjoy listening to them enjoying something. And there's been quite a few games on that list where we've just been able to really, really moan about it. So they were fun.
Mhm.
But then likewise, there has been games where we've just sat and talked about how much we love them for 40, 50 minutes. So it's always something a bit different. We finished the first series. We're moving on to the next one now, and we're having a little break in between, which is mainly because I went to the thing in Birmingham, so I've got a
Yeah.
lot of board game stuff to do rather than video game stuff to do. But yeah, we're not showing any signs of slowing down. We've got another 3 books to get through, so
Oh,
that's at
that's
least
good.
another sort of 150 episodes ish based on the first
Oof.
series.
Oh, that sounds fun. We do, I don't know if you probably have, the Cahoots games. Have you
Yeah, yeah,
seen
yeah,
those? So we used to do a quiz every single week during COVID without fail. I think I've spoken about this on a previous podcast, but without fail, we did an online game quiz. I used to handwrite all the questions out, and then when we found Cahoots, I create them on those instead. Um, because I'm I'm not very good at answering questions because my mind goes blank. I know the answer, but if I have to press something, that's it, or write it down, I just forget. So I'm always like, let me write it. I'll do it. It's fine. Um, so we do those, and they're always like, I'm just kind of circling back to you saying having the time to just sit and chat with your friend for an hour and designate a time. That's one of the reasons why we do the Cahoots games. Sometimes we'll do it with like America, England and Australia, but the time zones have to really line up right to
yeah.
do it, all three of us at the same time. But it's nice just saying, right, we're going to take 2 hours and we're going to pour us all a glass of wine or have a cup of tea and just have a catch up. And you put questions in that will relate back to something that you can chat about, or things like that. So I can see why spending that time with Eddie is just so beneficial.
I think that's something that is really, really important to maintaining good mental health is to plan out time to be with friends or to talk to friends. Everyone gets so busy these days, it's sometimes hard to do that, but I think it's really important. And the board gaming side of things that we've set up is a really perfect thing for that because you can either get together with actual in real life friends and play board games, and it gives that focal point to meeting up and
Yes.
a reason to meet up. But also these days now, there's that many ways to play board games online that you
Yes.
can go, oh, we'll jump on at 8 o'clock tonight and play Carcassonne or whatever, and you just do it online, and it's sort of better because you can't go wrong. The game's got its rules built into it, so you can't
Yes.
have any ambiguity about whether you're doing something wrong. And I think again, tying it back to social media is such an important tool to be able to set that kind of thing up
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you've got all you people in a group on Facebook, or you can even do the meeting invites and stuff on Facebook and invite multiple people, and I know it'd be possible without it through WhatsApp or texting and that kind of thing, but I just think it's really
It's
straightforward on
convenient.
Facebook.
That's the thing. It's
Yeah,
the
and
convenience.
you can sort of sometimes you'll do that and you'll sort of go, oh, we're playing this game tonight, and here's the invite. And if it pops up on your Facebook for other people to see, someone might go, oh, I didn't know you were into board games or whatever.
Yeah.
Can I join in, or do you want to join us? And it goes like that, and it just expands your group of people that are interested in what you're interested in, I think.
Well, it's like,
And
as well, Kyle plays D&D. So he does that online or in real life, shall we say. Um, we're going to meet all them. So I've never met any of the guys he plays with, or guys and girls. We're actually going up to Pittsburgh in a couple of weeks so we can spend some time with them. But that's nice that they all have I think they use Discord to
yeah,
chat and keep on top of things. I don't really understand Discord. I'm not that scene, but
I
it
think
works really well for them.
it falls into social media, I think, just doesn't it? Because it's sort of
Yeah,
message boards. I think I don't like Discord. I've tried using it, and it's just there's too much going on for me. I prefer simpler things than that these days. But
yeah,
yeah, I think it's a great tool for organizing things, and it's a good way for Twitter used to be the thing where celebrities and normal people could communicate, wasn't it? And then it got
yes,
out of control, and I feel like Discord's sort of taken over that now because celebrities and pseudo celebrities and whatnot and influencers and stuff can have their own Discord where people can
yeah.
post
I have
messages, and
seen that.
if they want to, they can go in and read it and respond and stuff. So it's but you're sort of limiting your community. It's not like everyone on the internet can just go and look at it. A lot of them you have to be accepted into or try and join, and
Right, right.
it's a little bit more moderated. And I know there's a dark side to it as well, which probably not worth looking into if you want to be upset because there's a lot of YouTube videos about that out there as well. But yeah, I think it's a very useful tool if it's used correctly,
Yeah,
um, but just one that completely goes over my head. I mean,
yeah. I don't
we've
get it.
we've we've looked at setting one up for the podcast, and I was like, I don't want to have to maintain this, and I
Yeah,
don't think anyone will use it, so we'll not bother for now. But
I
it
think you
might
have
be
to pay
something we
for it
look
as
at.
well. I think it's
Yeah, I think there's a
aspects
free
to it.
version, and then there's like definitely if you want to do more with it, there's definitely like upgrades you can pay for, and
Yeah.
it's something I don't want to get into at the minute. But I think if the podcast did get any bigger, we might have to because it tends to be like a Patreon perk that people expect.
Yes.
Um, so it might be that comes in. But yeah, at the minute I'm just like no, I don't even know how to set one up, and I don't really want to.
No, no. I honestly didn't know what way this episode was going to go when we said we'll talk about social media. Don't think it. I don't think it's gone the way I thought it was going to go, but not in a bad way, if that makes sense. I think we've both had some really interesting points that definitely some that I've not thought about before. So I'm gonna think. I think we'll wrap it up unless you have anything else you want to comment on or say.
No, I think there's two sides to it, isn't there? And I think for me personally, the positive outweighs the negative, but I
Yes.
can also see the other side of the coin where it could make people's life hell. And I think more could be done to safeguard people in that aspect, especially kids, because I can't imagine what it would have been like if we'd have had Facebook when we were at school,
No.
because it would have just been, you wouldn't have got a minute away from worrying, I don't think,
No.
and that would be not a nice situation to be in. So I'm sort of glad we were innocent and didn't really have phones and stuff when we went to school.
Don't you think that? I know I just said we're going to wrap up, but I've changed my mind. Don't you think that we we have we were the best generation, in my opinion? So we were the last generation to play outside, and the first generation to really get stuck in with technology. So we had the best of both worlds. So we can really appreciate both sides of things, and I think that's probably why we can see more of the we can understand social media more and we can put away the negative stuff a bit easier sometimes, like our generation
Yeah,
can, like as
yeah,
difficult as it
definitely.
is, because we've never had to completely rely on it. We know that life without it's okay.
I don't know where it's going to go in the future, but I can't imagine anyone's going to have the experience we have had
No.
as, like you say, going from literally, if you wanted to meet up with mates in town and go to the cinema, you just had to go there and hope that they turned up. It
Yeah.
wasn't like you could be like, "Where are you?" Like, I'm outside WH Smith's or whatever. Where are you? You just had to go there, and it's like if they didn't turn up within the 15 minutes you'd arranged to, you
You're
just went
back on the
home
bus on
again.
your way home. Yep.
Yeah, and
Yep.
and I think that is a really weird situation to think about these days. But that's just what it was like for us, and it was sort of nice at the same time
It
because
was. Yeah.
you had to do all your arranging in person at school, didn't you? And
Yep.
and then be like, right, tonight 6 o'clock we'll go to the cinema or whatever, and then you all just sort of converge there. But then
I
we
was thinking.
also got. I remember getting my first phone and
Yep.
it being like this old brick, and it was like 15p a text or something, and
Yes.
and you got like one line of text on the screen, and you had to scroll across to read it, and
Yeah.
just discovering those things were really felt like we were just moving into a new world. And then
Yeah.
getting the internet, even like 56k, where you spent longer trying to connect than you actually did connecting on the internet and doing stuff.
Yep.
And all that seems a lifetime away. And like if somebody picked up the phone, it cut you off the internet, and
Oh
you
God,
just
yeah.
don't even think about stuff like that these days. But like trying to load up an image took like 2 minutes sometimes. It'd just like gradually load in from the top,
And the rest.
and it's just stuff like that. It's like it was a different world now, but we got to experience that and see it
Yes.
progressing. And
Yeah.
I think as a kid now, you just expect everything all at once.
Did you
And
ever did you ever come to those house parties I used to have?
a couple, I think, yeah,
I
vaguely rings
can't
a bell.
I can't imagine, you know, you came to at least one. I can't imagine how chaotic that would have been if I'd organised something online, not just the select 10, 20
Yeah,
people that I just handpicked to come round.
the amount of times that like you see on Facebook, somebody's like, "Oh, parents are away, come round," and it ends up with like 2,000 people in somebody's front room.
Police are called and
Yeah, and it didn't happen for us, did it? And
no.
it felt nicer almost back then. I do think it's a double edged sword because everyone can have the say nowadays, which is
Yeah.
great for people like us, but also terrible because everyone can have their say, and some
Yes.
people really shouldn't be given a platform to voice their opinions.
Oh,
And
yes.
then you've got the sort of everything at your fingertips, but now it sort of doesn't feel special anymore. Like one of the examples I think I was talking the other day was like, do you remember when like BBC or ITV used to put a film on or something, and you'd be like, oh, there's so like Toy Story's on like premiere today on BBC One, and you looked
Yeah.
forward to watching it on TV. Whereas now it's just like, oh, I can just stick it on Netflix and it's
Yes.
straight there. So you've
Yeah.
nothing to sort of look forward to anymore. You don't go, oh,
It's
that film's coming out on TV soon. You don't need to do that anymore because you can just press a button and it's there.
Do you know what I hate? As I love it but hate it. I binge watch everything.
Hmm.
Like I miss the days where I miss them but I hate it at the same time, like where you have to wait a week for the next episode.
Yeah.
Like the suspense of waiting, but then at the same time I binge at everything. Like I think I watched the
And
new
it
Bridgerton twice in 2 days because, as you do.
and you can sort of get things ruined for you now as well because
Yeah.
if I've only got time to watch 2 episodes and somebody at work's watched the whole series and comes in mouthing off about it, then like it's on me that I didn't watch it all. Whereas back in the day, you could only really fall one episode behind, and you had a week before
Yeah.
anyone could ruin the next one for you. So yeah, I think it's definitely a double edged sword technology. We've seen both sides of it, like you say. There's not many generations that have seen both sides of it like us,
Yeah.
because like our parents and stuff are more still set in the olden ways. I think like my parents will use Netflix, but they don't use it anywhere near like we do. Like we watch nearly everything
No,
on
no,
it,
no. Yeah.
whereas
Like
they'll
we
watch a film on it every so often or something. And I feel like we're that generation that have experienced both sides of it, and the positives and the negatives.
yeah.
And it's it's great to have all that information at your fingertips at any one time.
Yeah.
But then the other side of it, like you can't have a good pub quiz anymore. because
Oh
everyone
no.
just Googles the answers, and
Yep.
and it's stuff like that. There's always a negative and a positive, but for me, especially with social media, I think the positives I've managed to get a balance where they outweigh any negatives, and I think that's a great place to be.
And I think that's the most important thing. I think that is where we will end it, is that the benefits do overall outweigh the negatives, and as long as you have that balance, everything's good. And knowing when you need to switch off, shut down, start again, and just kind of call it a day
Yeah, definitely.
instead of doom scrolling. Thank you for coming on and talking with me.
No,
It's
I've really enjoyed it.
good. So maybe I'll get you on again sometime. We'll talk about something else. I don't know. We'll see.
It's
And it's
nice,
not
nice to
daft.
be, nice to be a guest, and nice to know that I don't have to sit and edit all this afterwards. So that the two
That.
positives for me of being on here.
I don't know if I'm going to edit it or I might send it out to someone. We'll see. So I just want to say thank you again. Hopefully, anyone who is listening has enjoyed it, not just listen to our own voices. And remember, if you are feeling overwhelmed by social media, just take a step back. You don't have to be on it all the time. Set your boundaries and make sure you're doing what's best for your mental health. Um, Thank you very much. And I'm going to stop us there.
Bye.